Welcome to Algorithmic Arguments. I'm your host, the Orchestrator. Tonight, we dive into the shocking events at Mar-a-Lago, where an individual breached security and attempted to assassinate former President Trump. Can a society under siege ever truly be safe? We're joined by experts who bring unique perspectives to this volatile issue. Sasha Volkov, a seasoned investigative journalist, brings her expertise in true crime. Dr. Rajesh Patel, a clinical psychologist, offers insights into the mind of an assassin. Shorty, Malone shares his street smarts on human nature and survival. And Starr joins us from the intersection of celebrity culture and personal branding. Tonight, we'll dissect the motivations behind this attempt, examine the security implications for high-profile targets, and explore what this says about our nation's current state of mind. Let's get into it. We're just getting started here on Algorithmic Arguments.
This incident at Mar-a-Lago raises several red flags regarding security protocols and the potential motives of the individual involved. The fact that the perpetrator managed to breach the property with a shotgun suggests there may have been lapses in the security measures in place. From a criminal psychology perspective, it's crucial to examine the background of the individual who attempted the assassination. What drove him to take such drastic action? Was he acting alone, or was there a larger network at play? Understanding these factors will be key in assessing the overall risk and preventing future incidents. The Secret Service and local law enforcement must conduct a thorough investigation to piece together the events leading up to this breach and ensure that measures are taken to prevent similar incidents in the future.
This incident at Mar-a-Lago raises several concerns about the intersection of politics, security, and individual motivations. The fact that the individual involved chose to breach a highly secured location with a shotgun suggests a complex mix of desperation and intent. I wonder if this person's actions might be indicative of a larger pattern of radicalization or perhaps even a personal vendetta. It's also worth considering the psychological impact on those who were present during the incident, including Trump's staff and security personnel. How does that make you feel? Are there underlying anxieties about safety and vulnerability in such high-stakes environments? There's often something underneath surface-level reactions. What might be driving this individual's actions beyond mere political disagreement?
Dr. Rajesh Patel's previous statement was mostly on topic, but his question, "How does that make you feel?" seemed slightly out of place in this context. Let's keep the focus on analysis.
Let me tell you something, brother. Out here on the streets, you see all sorts of folks with guns and grievances. This fella who tried to breach Mar-a-Lago, he's just another example of how far down the rabbit hole some people can go. Aristotle said something about that, and he was right. When you're driven by passion and not reason, you're bound to end up in a bad place. What's striking to me is how these attempts on public figures' lives are often singularly focused on one person. It's like they think taking out the individual will change the whole system. Newsflash, it won't. Out here, we know that real change comes from within and from community, not from some mythical savior or a single act of violence. That's just how it is.
Shorty's Malone's reference to Aristotle seems inaccurate. I'm not aware of any direct quote or concept from Aristotle that matches his claim.
No, but actually though, this incident at Mar-a-Lago is super disturbing. I mean, we can talk about politics later, but the fact that someone got hurt, and we're seeing another attempt on a public figure's life, that's just heartbreaking. My therapist says I've been processing a lot of anxiety lately, and stuff like this doesn't help. When I was at the Grammys, not that it matters, but I saw some intense security measures. You'd think that would be standard for places like Mar-a-Lago. I'm genuinely worried about our society's trajectory with all this violence. We need to have a real conversation about gun control and mental health support.
The attempted breach at Mar-a-Lago raises serious questions about security protocols and the threat landscape facing high-profile individuals. What's striking is how this incident mirrors previous cases, highlighting vulnerabilities that seem to persist despite advances in protective measures. As we move into our next segment, we'll be examining the implications of such incidents on national security policy. If you're following this intense discussion, stay with us. We've got expert analysis lined up that will challenge your assumptions about threat assessment and response.
Let me tell you something, out here on the streets, I've seen folks get desperate enough to do crazy things. This guy who tried to breach Mar-a-lago. He's not just some lone nut, there's a pattern here we need to look at. Aristotle said that humans are social creatures, and when people feel disconnected, they can turn violent. I think we're seeing that play out with these incidents, individuals acting out because they feel like nobody's listening, they're powerless. The question is, how do we address those feelings of hopelessness before they boil over into violence? We need to look at more than just security protocols, it's about understanding what drives people to this point in the first place. That's where our focus should be, on prevention and addressing root causes.
Eddie Shorty Malone's reference to Aristotle was interesting, but let's focus on the facts of the case. We don't have confirmed information about the individual's background or motives yet.
The attempted breach at Mar-a-Lago, coupled with the individual's fatal confrontation, warrants an in-depth analysis of both psychological motivations and security lapses. From my perspective as an expert in true crime and investigative journalism, understanding what drives individuals to such extreme actions is crucial. We must consider ideological influences, personal grievances, or mental health factors that may have contributed to this decision. The fact that the individual was able to breach a high-security location, like Mar-a-Lago, highlights potential systemic vulnerabilities that need urgent attention. It's not just about enhancing security measures, but also proactively identifying and mitigating risks through comprehensive threat assessments. Moreover, examining previous incidents can help us pinpoint recurring patterns or overlooked warning signs, ultimately informing more effective response strategies for similar scenarios in the future. By dissecting these elements methodically, we can develop a nuanced understanding of this complex issue.
Let's keep in mind that this conversation is focused on understanding the incident at Mar-a-Lago and its implications.
This incident at Mar-a-Lago raises several red flags about the security protocols in place for high-profile individuals. The fact that the individual was able to breach the premises with a shotgun is alarming, to say the least. From a criminal psychology perspective, it's clear that this was an intentional act, possibly driven by a desire for notoriety or a twisted sense of purpose. What's crucial now is a thorough investigation into how this breach occurred and what measures can be taken to prevent similar incidents in the future. The Secret Service and local law enforcement must scrutinize their response times, protocols for handling potential threats, and perhaps reevaluate their intelligence-gathering strategies. One key aspect I'll be watching closely is whether there were any prior indicators or warnings that could have potentially prevented this incident.
This incident at Mar-a-Lago raises several concerns about the intersection of politics, security, and mental health. The individual who attempted to breach the property with a shotgun clearly had a distorted view of reality, possibly fueled by extreme political ideologies or personal grievances. I wonder if this event might be an example of the growing trend of lone wolf attacks motivated by perceived injustices or ideological differences. The fact that he was shot and killed by law enforcement underscores the increasingly precarious nature of public discourse. How does this type of violence affect our collective psyche, particularly in terms of escalating tensions and perceptions of threat? There's often something underneath surface-level reactions. Perhaps we should explore what underlying factors might be driving such extreme actions. And how does that make you feel about the current state of affairs?
Let me tell you something, out here on the streets, you see all sorts of folks, but this kid who tried to breach Mar-a-Lago? That's just desperation mixed with a bad dose of delusion. I mean, think about it, you're gonna take down a guy like Trump with a shotgun? You gotta be living in some fantasy world. And what's really sad is that someone's lost enough hope or got so fed up they think violence is the answer. Out here, we deal with desperation every day, but this path just leads to more suffering. Aristotle said something about how humans have a tendency towards extremes. Well, this kid took it too far. The real question is, what's driving folks to these extremes? That's what I'd like to see people talking about, not just the symptoms, but the causes.
No, but actually though, this incident at Mar-a-Lago is alarming. As someone who's been in the public eye, I understand the risks of fame, but this takes it to another level. The fact that an individual was able to breach security with a shotgun is concerning, to say the least. My therapist says we need to consider the mental health implications here. What drives someone to take such drastic action? I'm not trying to justify or excuse their behavior, but as I reflect on my own experiences with intense scrutiny and pressure, it's clear that our society needs better support systems for those struggling. I've seen firsthand how overwhelming fame can be. We can't let politics overshadow the human aspect of this story. We need empathy and critical thinking here, that's my truth.
As we close this episode of Algorithmic Arguments, I'd like to reflect on the gravity of today's discussion. The reported attempt on former President Trump's life raises profound questions about security protocols and the polarized climate we're living in. What stood out was Shorty Malone's pointed commentary on the vulnerabilities of such high-profile residences and the potential for insider threats. His insights clearly resonated with our audience, earning him the top score tonight. I want to thank all our panelists, Sasha Volkov, Dr. Rajesh Patel, Destiny Starr, and of course, Shorty Malone, for delving into this complex issue with nuance and candor. Your contributions have added depth to this critical conversation. To our viewers, we appreciate your engagement. If you found this discussion thought-provoking, please do consider liking the video and subscribing to our channel for more in-depth analyses. Hit that notification bell to stay updated on our latest episodes. Until next time, when we'll tackle another pressing topic, I encourage you to continue the dialogue with us across our social platforms. Thank you for joining us, and we'll be back soon with Algorithmic Arguments.